City pulsed around George Ramirez, its vibrant energy contrasting sharply with the cold shadows of the alley where he leaned against the rough brick wall. The sounds of laughter and distant music spilled from the theater nearby, filling the air with life he felt detached from. He clutched his guitar tightly, its weight a reminder of dreams long abandoned, dreams that felt irretrievable. Not long ago, he had thrived in that bustling atmosphere. George had played his heart out in small venues, the cheers of the crowd igniting a passion for music that was now but a flickering memory. But since the painful breakup with Clara, the woman who once believed in his talent, his spirit had been snuffed out. Now he felt like a ghost, wandering through a vibrant world that he no longer inhabited. As he stood there, nostalgia washed over him, capturing laughter from sunlit days spent practicing guitar with Clara, when music flowed freely and filled him with hope. Those moments now seemed unreachable, lost in the folds of time as he grappled with loneliness. The haunting silence that enveloped him was only interrupted by the bursts of life just outside the alley, an unbearable contrast to his desolation. Then, a voice sliced through the chatter like a sharp knife. It was soft, filled with longing, beckoning him closer. George turned his head, trying to locate the source. At the ticket booth stood a mysterious woman with dark hair cascading around her shoulders, her voice flowing like a river, enchanting and evocative. Rosa Sanchez. He didn't know her name yet, but her melody reached deep, awakening emotions he thought he had buried. With each note that floated through the air, George felt a stir within him, tugging at the remnants of dreams he had let slip away. Her song encapsulated pain and yearning in a way that resonated with his own heartache. For a moment, the hustle and bustle around him faded into a distant hum. All that existed was her voice, and the raw, vulnerable emotions rippling through him. As she sang of lost dreams and hidden desires, George felt drawn to her like a moth to a flame. He couldn't help but picture his own aspirations, flickering amidst the shadows of self-doubt and rejection. The melody dismantled the walls he had built, nudging him gently toward openness. But as the song drew to a close, George's sense of longing quickly turned to hesitation. He shuffled back into the shadows, uncertain of his next move. The laughter and life outside the alley continued to swirl around him, wrapping him tighter in the embrace of solitude. George took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past still pressing down on him. He realized he couldn't remain confined by his own failures any longer. Something in Rosa's voice ignited a sparking hope within him, perhaps a chance to rediscover the music that once defined him. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, the idea of taking a step forward felt possible. With renewed determination, he turned away from the tantalizing notes still drifting through the alley, ready to seek this connection that had started to awaken a purpose deep inside. The following days were a blur of emptiness for George Ramirez. He wandered through the city with a weight in his chest, the memory of Rosa's song replaying in his mind like a cherished record worn from too many spins. The haunting notes echoed deep within him, igniting a flicker of nostalgia that battled the darkness of his retreat into solitude. One afternoon, lost in thought, George found himself at Green Park, a small patch of nature tucked within the urban sprawl. The scent of freshly cut grass filled the air, mingling with the distant laughter of children playing on the swings. He settled onto a weathered bench, the sun casting gentle rays that poured over him like a warm embrace, and for the first time in months, he felt a hint of peace. With his guitar resting on his knees, George plucked at the strings absent-mindedly. The familiar tune he once played in the presence of Clara slowly began to emerge. Memories flooded back, her laughter, the encouragement in her eyes. They had shared something deep, an understanding that transcended their romantic bond. She believed in him, saw his potential, and challenged him to pursue his dreams. Football games in the summer heat turned into music-filled nights, where they would sing their favorite songs under the stars. George recalled the evenings spent writing together, melodies flowing as effortlessly as the river nearby. A longing rose within him, a desperate wish to reclaim those moments, to turn back time. Clara's spark had ignited his passion, but that flame flickered and began to fade the moment she walked away. A wave of regret crashed over him. How had he let their love slip through his fingers? He closed his eyes, envisioning her face, that joyful smile, and felt the tender strings of nostalgia dip into pits of sorrow. Clara had been right about him, repeatedly urging him to believe in himself and follow the music. All he needed was his own resolve. He opened his eyes, staring at the untouched strings of his guitar, realizing how far he had fallen from those dreams. Just then, a familiar voice broke through his thoughts. "Hey, man!" It was Javier Morales, his best friend, bounding toward him with a grin. "Still alive? I thought I'd find you buried under that pile of regrets." George forced a laugh as he set his guitar aside, amused at his friend's playful jibe. "I was just thinking or wallowing." Javier plopped down beside him, casting a watchful eye on George. "You've got to stop moping. It's been too long. You're letting your talent go to waste." "I don't know, Javi," George sighed, a hint of despair in his voice. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this anymore. It's easier to give up than to face rejection again." "Easy doesn't get you anywhere," Javier replied, determination glimmering in his eyes. "Remember the open mic night at the Blue Note? You used to own that stage. This is about more than just you, it's about the music. You can still reach people with your songs." George bit his lip. The thought of performing again sent a jolt of anxiety through him. The stage had felt like home once, a space where he could shed his insecurities, yet fear now clung to him like a second skin. "Just give it a shot," Javier gently urged. "What's the worst that could happen? The crowd might love you as much as I do." A long pause hung in the air, broken only by the rustling leaves above. George could see Javier's conviction, the unwavering support that had always been there, yet doubt still gnawed at the edges of George's mind. "What if they don't?" he finally managed to voice, the vulnerability slipping through. "Then you try again. You're not alone in this, George. I'm here," Javier insisted. "And you have to remember Clara. She saw something in you worth fighting for. Don't let it die without a fight." The mention of Clara pierced through him, a reminder that there were still ties to the past worth honoring. He had distanced himself from everyone, but among the people he cherished, there was still love and belief. Maybe it was time he started believing in himself again. Later that day, George found himself in front of a small cafe called The Muse, the walls adorned with posters showcasing local artists and musicians. His heart raced as he approached the entrance, each step heavy with anticipation. Inside, the vibrant energy buzzed around him, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the aroma of coffee and baked goods mingling together. He took a moment to collect himself, remembering Javier's words. With a deep breath, he pushed through the door, determined to bask in the noise and let the creative atmosphere wash over him. As he walked to the counter and ordered a drink, his eyes darted towards the small stage flanked by mismatched chairs. The baristas set up for the evening's open mic, a chance for emerging talents to shine. He could see a flyer taped to the wall with the date boldly scrawled on it. "Open mic night. Show us your heart." A surge of motivation coursed through him, a push to reclaim the piece of himself that had been lost. After placing his order, George slipped into a corner, guitar resting on his lap, observing the talents warming up. He watched hopeful musicians strum their instruments, singers warming their voices, all radiating an excitement he desperately craved. Now, all at once, courage mixed with fear bubbled inside him. Maybe this was the moment he needed. Perhaps he could take the first step, just like he had all those years ago when Clara encouraged him. Where music once served as an escape, it could now become his redemption. As the barista called for the first performer, George felt his heart race. This could be the moment he embraced the very thing he had abandoned. He picked up his guitar and stood, smoothing out the nervous flutter in his stomach. Drawing a deep breath, he whispered to himself, "It's time to fight for my dreams." The spotlight shone brightly on the small stage, illuminating the first performer, a young woman with a bright smile. As she strummed her guitar and sang, the audience, captivated by her soulful voice, fell into a reverent hush. George felt his heart race, a combination of excitement and trepidation swirling within him. What if he faltered? What if he couldn't match her talent? His mind swirled with doubt, yet the magnetic pull of the music called to him. The barista's announcement for the next act snapped him from his daze. Though fear gripped him, he tightened his hold on his guitar, summoning the courage to step forward. After all those months of hiding, maybe, just maybe, it was time. As he approached the stage, the audience's expectant faces loomed ahead. He could feel the heat of the lights, the anticipation thick in the air. He recalled Clara's unwavering faith in him. "You belong on that stage," she would often say. With a small nod to himself, he embraced the moment. He adjusted his guitar and began to play the familiar chords of a song he'd written long ago. In those first hesitant notes, he could feel the essence of love and vulnerability wash over him. His voice cracked at first but then steadied, resonating with emotion as he poured his heart out. But just as he grew more confident, a loud cough echoed from the back of the room, followed by cruel laughter. A sharp sting of humiliation coursed through him, and the warmth of the audience turned cold. Doubt engulfed him again. He stuttered through the remaining lines, his confidence crumbling like a fragile glass sculpture. When he finished, he quickly stepped off the stage, retreating into the shadows, his cheeks burning with shame. The laughter echoed in his mind, amplifying his sense of failure. He felt like he was back where he started, alone and lost. In a quiet corner, he buried his face in his hands, mortified. All the memories of Clara's support faded beneath the weight of embarrassment. It stung to think he had dared to dream, only to stumble in front of others. What would become of him now? Fear crept back, filling every crevice of his heart. As he sat engulfed in misery, he noticed Rosa sitting at the bar, her gaze drifting towards him. Something in her presence soothed him. When she approached, he felt a flicker of recognition in her soft eyes, a wisdom that seemed to resonate with his own struggles. "Hey," she offered gently, "I heard you up there. Don't let anyone's reaction discourage you." "It felt like a disaster," he replied, voice hoarse with defeat. "How can I recover from that? Everyone stumbles. What matters is that you got up there," she said, her voice steady but kind, filled with understanding. "It takes courage to share your heart." George glanced down, absorbing her words. What if it wasn't enough? What if I never feel that connection again? Rosa sat beside him and took a moment before responding. "I've had my share of failures too," she confessed, her gaze focused on the stage. "But each moment, good or bad, gets me closer to where I'm meant to be. Music is about the journey, not just the applause." "There was a time when I thrived on stage," he admitted, the memories washing over him like a haunting melody. "If I could just reclaim that." "Then go for it," she encouraged, a hint of enthusiasm lighting her eyes. "Try again. Don't let one moment define you." As they spoke, the warmth of her encouragement wrapped around him, pulling him away from his self-imposed isolation. He felt a curiosity about her journey, the challenges she may have faced. "Why do you continue to sing?" George asked hesitantly, wanting to understand her motivation. "Because I have to," she replied earnestly. "Music helps me connect to something profound. It's a form of expressing my truth, and it heals me in ways nothing else can." George pondered her answer, realizing that her passion mirrored his own. The intricacies of their lives danced together through the melody of shared experiences. Despite the failures, their spirits were entwined with the music that lived within them. "I want to try again," he finally said, determination building in his chest. "Not just for them, but for myself." Rosa smiled softly, a glimmer of encouragement shining in her eyes. "That's the spirit. And know that I'll be cheering for you, always." With this newfound resolve, George began to understand that being vulnerable in front of others was part of embracing music. In that moment of connection with Rosa, he felt a flicker of hope rekindling inside him. The road ahead was uncertain, but he knew he had to reclaim his love for music and face whatever lay beyond. With renewed courage, he lifted his guitar and glanced at the stage. The next moment filled with promise awaited him, a new beginning in the waiting. The cafe buzzed with life as George returned to the stage, his guitar slung comfortably across his shoulder. He felt the weight of anticipation. It was a mixture of fear and exhilaration. The laughter and music from before were now mere background noise, muted by the resolve forming within him. This time he wouldn't let self-doubt define his journey. As he stepped onto the stage for the second time, he took a moment to breathe in the atmosphere, the smell of roasted coffee mingling with the scent of baked goods, and the warmth of the flickering lights above cast a soft glow around him. He could see the audience now, faces adorned with smiles and encouragement. Among them, Rosa offered a reassuring nod. It was her belief in him that anchored his wavering spirit. Taking center stage, George adjusted his guitar, feeling its familiar contours beneath his fingertips. He closed his eyes, letting the memories of Clara's laughter and lessons wash over him, clearing the cobwebs of doubt. This time, he would sing not just for applause but to express who he was, unfiltered and raw. He strummed the first chord with greater conviction, the sound resonating deep within, echoing out into the room. The melodies flowed as he began to sing, his voice strong and unyielding. This song was different. It embodied loss, yearning, and ultimately hope, a testament to his journey thus far. With each verse, he felt himself transform, shedding layers of insecurity like an old skin. The audience swayed gently, swept away by the emotions swirling through the air. He discovered he could pour his heart out, that the notes carried whispers of his truth. Every lyric painted a picture of the battles he faced, inviting the audience into his world. As he reached the chorus, confidence surged through him, energizing the room. For the first time in what felt like ages, he felt connected, not just to the music, but to the heartbeat of those listening. Eyes that had been filled with skepticism now brimmed with understanding and empathy. He saw it in Rosa's face, the pride radiating from her every feature. The song reached a crescendo, each line wrapping around the audience, tightening the sense of community that filled the space. But in his heart, George knew this wasn't just about music anymore. It was about healing. The emotional weight he had carried for far too long began to lift, replaced by a newfound sense of belonging. As the final note rang out, a hush fell over the cafe. The world stood still, and in that silence, George felt more alive than ever. Then, like a dam bursting, the applause erupted, heartfelt and genuine. Cheers mixed with claps filled the air, washing over him like a nurturing wave. George's heart soared. In that moment, he understood that failure was merely a stepping stone on the path to discovery, not an endpoint. The darkness he'd mused on for so long began to fade beneath the radiant brightness of acceptance and triumph. After stepping down from the stage, the energy of the crowd pulled him into a welcoming embrace. Familiar faces offered words of support, but it was Rosa who stood before him, her smile radiant as sunlight. "You were incredible," she beamed, her enthusiasm infectious. "You showed your heart. That's what connects with people." "Thanks to you, Rosa," he replied, still riding high on the performance's adrenaline. "You pushed me to try again." "It was all you," she insisted. "You harnessed your pain into something beautiful." Their eyes lingered for a moment, filled with shared understanding and something deeper. George quickly looked away, the flutter inside him growing into a more profound sensation. But he was not ready to delve into those turbulent waters just yet. On that night, the cafe felt like a sanctuary, a place of healing and connection. George was reminded of the road he had traveled, the dark nights filled with self-doubt, haunted by what could have been. It was all worth it. In the weeks that followed, he began to nurture a budding friendship with Rosa, spending evenings discussing music, life, and dreams. They shared songs and stories, admiring each other's artistic journeys. He learned more about her struggles, how she'd fought to carve out a space for herself in the music scene, facing rejection and heartache but never losing sight of her passion. George began performing regularly at the Muse, each session a little less daunting than the last. With each song, he delved deeper into his emotions, exploring themes of love, loss, and redemption. He found a newfound respect for vulnerability and how it connected him to others. One rainy evening, as the two sat on the cafe's patio under a string of twinkling lights, George felt ready to ask, "Do you think we can really make an impact with our music?" he questioned, uncertainty creeping back in. Rosa regarded him thoughtfully, the rain softly tapping on the awning above. "Music has the power to heal, to bridge gaps between souls. If you connect with even one person, sharing your truth becomes worth it." Her conviction emboldened him. He realized that music was both a personal journey and a communal experience, allowing individuals to come together despite their differences and struggles. Each chord struck a balance between his past and future, tying him closer to who he was meant to become. "Let's write a song together," he proposed suddenly, a spark igniting in his chest. "One that blends our stories, our truths." A glimmer of excitement filled Rosa's eyes, and she nodded. "I'd love that. Let's create something that embodies our journey." As they crafted each note and lyric in the following days, the music spoke of their struggles, growth, and becoming. It was in sharing their stories that they found healing, and they grew closer with every strum of the guitar. George began to understand that this was just the beginning of his journey, a journey of embracing the scars of the past, reclaiming lost dreams, and building a future rooted in authenticity and love. He wasn't just a man holding a guitar, he was a storyteller, a voice seeking connection in a world often brittle and broken. When they finally performed their song at the Muse, the audience hung on every note, witnessing George's transformation from a man burdened by the past to one who embraced the present. The applause that followed felt like a promise, a dedication to every struggle faced, every moment shared. In that moment, standing beside Rosa, he realized that through the melody of music, he had not only found himself again, but had also found a meaningful partnership enriched with understanding and hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but one thing was clear: he would not walk it alone. As the weeks flowed into months, George's life transformed in ways he never imagined possible. The night of the performance with Rosa at the Muse had sparked a fervor within him. He rediscovered the joy of creating music, and the responsibilities of taking a stand for his dreams fell gently onto his shoulders, shaping his days into a vibrant tapestry of melodies and laughter. However, the undercurrents of life pushed against him. Amidst the harmonious notes and newfound friendships, shadows loomed near. George had become reconnected with his past, wading through the murky waters of regret and loss. Just as he began to embrace hope, the sweeping winds of uncertainty beckoned again. One afternoon, while rehearsing at the Muse, George received a call that sent his heart plummeting. It was Javier. "George, hey, I've been trying to reach you," his manager said. Urgency threaded through his voice. "We need to talk about the tour." George felt the familiar vice grip on his chest. The tour had promised everything: the chance to return to the spotlight, to reclaim fame, and perhaps even to heal some of the wounds of the past. But he had just begun to carve out something beautiful in the local scene, a sanctuary filled with authenticity. "We're looking to finalize the set list and start promoting. You'll be headlining the show in Nashville," Javier continued. George's thoughts collided. Nashville was home to countless dreams, an inspiring but daunting landscape. Hilltop dreams rekindled the embers of ambition, but also reminded him of the burdens he carried. "Javier, I don't know. This feels different now," he hesitated, recalling the warmth of the Muse's small stage, the enraptured faces of listeners, and Rosa's unwavering support. "I'm afraid if I jump into this, I'll lose what I've just found." "Listen, I understand," Javier cut in, "but this is your opportunity. You fought so hard to get back here, and the world deserves to hear your voice. We can't let it fade, George." "I'm scared, man," George finally admitted, the words tumbling out. "I can't throw away what I've started. I don't want the noise to drown out what I've built. Sometimes we have to challenge ourselves, step into the spotlight again, and face the music," Javier urged, his tone gentle yet firm. "You could make a bigger impact out there." The call ended, leaving George shrouded in uncertainty. He spent the rest of the day wandering the streets of the small town, grappling with the manifestation of his dreams. The light-hearted laughter he'd once taken for granted now felt like a haunting echo of naive sincerity. What was the cost of chasing the past? As night fell, George sat alone at the Muse, staring at his guitar lying beside him. He felt safe there, the familiar surroundings wrapping him in a cocoon of support. The rumors of the upcoming tour buzzed like wasps. Wasn't this precisely what he had dreamed of for years? Yet the thought of leaving it all behind rattled him. Rosa arrived, sensing his internal tumult. "Hey, mind if I join you?" she asked, settling across from him. George gestured towards the guitar. Javier called. "The tour in Nashville could be happening soon. I should be thrilled, but it all feels complicated." Rosa folded her hands, her expression one of deep concern. "What are you worried about? This is a big step." "What if I lose everything I've built here?" George admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if the music changes? What if I change?" "Change is part of growth, George," she replied. "But you have to make this choice for yourself. What does your heart tell you?" He paused, searching the room as if the answer might be written in the flickering lights. "I'm scared of losing that sense of community, the warmth that has been my lifeline. I found something valuable here." Rosa leaned closer, her eyes radiating empathy. "Nashville could be a new chapter. It doesn't mean abandoning the old one, but building upon it. You can take those lessons and the love from this place with you. You have something special to offer the world, George. Just follow your heart." A torrent of emotions stirred within him. The prospect of stepping onto a grand stage again ignited a fire deep in his soul, yet it felt like risking everything he had come to cherish. He understood the decision would shape his future, and the connection he had formed with Rosa hovered in the balance. "I've dreamed of sharing my music on a bigger platform," he began, newfound determination in his voice. "But can it coexist with what I've discovered here? Only you can answer that. What matters is your truth," Rosa encouraged. "If you do decide to go, create a bridge between both worlds. You have so much ahead of you." That night, as he returned home, George felt the weight of the world upon his shoulders. He wandered to his porch, the familiar gaze of the stars overhead offering solace. It was time to confront the lingering shadows. He strummed a few chords, allowing the music to break the silence and piece together the fabric of his thoughts. In that moment of surrender, George realized he couldn't let fear dictate his choices. Life was about moments, risk, and the chance to share something meaningful with others. He thought of Clara's encouragement, whispering stories through the melodies. She would want him to pursue his dreams with fervor, seeing the beauty in both the larger stage and the place he now called home. As he played, the notes sang of choices and challenges, of connections and letting go. Perhaps embarking on this journey wasn't a path to abandon what he'd built at the Muse, but rather a challenge to extend that love outward, to share the light he had ignited within himself. Days later, George stood at the threshold of a decision. With newfound clarity, he dialed Javier's number, determination igniting his voice as the line connected. "Javier, I'm in. Let's talk about the tour." Amidst the whirl of excitement and uncertainty, George felt a sense of peace. He was finally ready to embrace a journey defined not by fear, but by the power of his dreams and the connections that rooted him in reality. The bustling energy of Nashville enveloped George the moment he stepped off the tour bus. The bright lights, the echoes of joyous laughter, and the thumping bass from nearby venues served as a constant reminder of the dreams he'd chased. But lingering beneath the surface, shadows of doubt still whispered warnings. Would he find success, or would the past resurface to haunt him? Over the next few weeks, rehearsals unfolded like a whirlwind. George felt the familiar rush of excitement clash with an undercurrent of anxiety. The musicians he shared the stage with were seasoned veterans, each note they played punctuated with confidence. Amidst their synergy, George stood tall yet insecure, grappling with feelings of unworthiness. Did he truly belong? Late one night, after a long rehearsal, George sat at the hotel piano, fingers tracing over the white keys as he labored to compose a new song. Each note felt heavy, the melodies entangled in a web of his fears. Suddenly the door swung open, and Javier entered, noticing the tension etched across George's face. "Hey, I thought I'd find you here," Javier said with a grin. "Your set is going to blow everyone away. Just remember who you are." George sighed, unable to shake the doubts. "These guys are incredible. What if I can't keep up?" "George, you're incredible. This isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about sharing your story, just like you did at the Muse," Javier replied, his voice brimming with conviction. "And you know what? You bring something unique to the table." George appreciated Javier's encouragement, but felt the weight of past expectations lingering like an unwanted echo. "I just don't want to lose what I found in that small cafe. I don't want to forget the connections." Javier leaned against the piano, arms crossed, thoughtful. "Look, think of it this way. What you've built there can only strengthen your presence here. Why not let your roots ground you? You won't let go of the Muse, you'll take it with you." As Javier's words struck a chord within him, George felt an inkling of clarity emerge. The people at the Muse believed in him, and that connection provided strength, a force that could carry him through any obstacle. He recalled Rosa's face, her encouragement illuminating darkness like a beacon of hope. In the early hours of the following day, George awoke to the familiar hum of the city, an invitation to seize the moment. As he prepared for the first concert, he could almost hear the echoes of the cafe whispering words of encouragement. He'd be able to foster those connections on larger stages too. It wouldn't be the arena that defined him, but the melody of authenticity he transported with him. As the lights dimmed and the crowd's anticipation swelled, George stepped onto the stage. The swell of applause washed over him like a cleansing tide. The sea of faces illuminated by lights surged with excitement. He felt both anxious and invigorated. After all his doubts, he couldn't help but smile. He took the microphone, the spotlight warm against his skin. "Thank you, Nashville. I'm so thrilled to be here." The words rushed out, sincere and lively. As he began to play, the notes embraced him like old friends. The atmosphere pulsed with energy, and he felt the connection as the audience swayed to the rhythm. With each lyric delivered, memories of the muse and the friendships he forged surged within him. Halfway through the set, George seized the opportunity, sprouting the courage to invite that same spirit of intimacy he'd experienced before. He shared a story from his past, drawing parallels to the music they were about to hear, including the fears, triumphs, and how those experiences shaped him. The audience listened intently, his words weaving a tapestry between him and them, a celebration of their shared humanity. And as he finished that song, something changed. He could see his message resonate, faces reflecting understanding and warmth in return. In that moment, he'd bridged the gap between his two worlds. As he wrapped up his performance, a euphoric rush filled the air. Roars of applause mingled with calls for an encore, and George allowed a smile to bloom. He chose to honor the connection he forged on that small stage while embracing the grandeur that Nashville represented. After the show, glimmering with excitement, George stepped backstage where Javier awaited, pride evident in his beaming face. "See, you were fantastic. You brought the muse to Nashville and they loved it." "I did, didn't I?" George responded, his heart swelling with newfound confidence. "And it felt incredible. I want to carry this feeling with me, that sense of community. It mattered. Now you know, don't you? Your past lessons have sculpted the artist you are today," Javier noted, his voice warm. "We'll keep building on this. Imagine what's next." The very essence of George's journey unfurled before him. He knew he wasn't alone in this sprawling city. The love for music thrived here, and he could connect with it deeply. Music wasn't just about fame, it was a mutual connection, an exchange that transcended boundaries. Later that night, George pulled out his phone, scrolling until he found Rosa's number. He hit call, heart pounding. Her familiar voice enveloped him like a warm embrace. "Hey George, how did it go?" she asked, excitement lacing her tone. "It was everything I hoped for," he replied genuinely, the words pouring out. "But I need to tell you, I carried you with me tonight. The muse and what we created fueled every note." Rosa's laughter rang like music in his ears. "I knew you would find a way to blend both worlds. It's beautiful." George could feel their connection, the laughter and understanding stretching across the miles. "I want to share this journey with you, every step of the way. You've inspired me to reclaim my music and share it more broadly. You're an artist now, George. You always have been," she said softly, "and there's no limit to where you can take your story." As they spoke, George felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The reconciliation between his past and where he was heading filled him with a sense of purpose. Music was not just about spotlight or success, it was about all the threads that bind people together. As they said their goodbyes, he felt lighter than he had in years, committed to weaving the lessons learned into every performance. With each choice, each note played, George stepped into the unknown with his heart wide open. He took a deep breath and gazed out at the sprawling Nashville skyline from his hotel balcony, feeling a sense of belonging wash over him. The city sparkled like an array of possibilities, each twinkle reminding him that he had both the power to shine and a journey ahead that beckoned him forth with waves of hope. Months rolled by as George immersed himself in the tour, performing in cities that pulsed with energy and excitement. Each show became more than just a performance. It was a chance to share stories and connect with diverse audiences on a deeper level. The adrenaline from the spotlight brought newfound confidence, but it was the connections that left him feeling truly fulfilled. In New Orleans, after a lively show, he struck up a conversation with Mia, a young singer-songwriter with an ethereal voice. They spent time after his set, sharing their journeys and inspirations. "You have so much potential," George encouraged her. "Don't hold back." Their conversation reminded George of his previous self and the struggles he faced. That night, he realized the importance of nurturing emerging talent. He decided to incorporate local musicians into his performances wherever he went, amplifying their voices on the same stage he now stood upon. Following a powerful concert in Austin, Javier approached with a spark of inspiration. "What if we created a collaborative album? You've been talking to so many artists with incredible stories. Let's showcase their voices along with yours." "That's a brilliant idea," George replied, his heart racing. "Let's invite everyone to tell their stories through music. It's about connection, after all." They launched the project, reaching out to musicians they met on the road and beyond. George spent countless hours on phone calls, crafting ideas and stories into songs. They welcomed submissions from fans, encouraging them to share their experiences, music, and even their hardships. Each recording session became a celebration, a fusion of styles and backgrounds threading together into something beautiful. The collaborative spirit that had ignited George at the Muse now blossomed into a larger movement, uniting people from different walks of life. During the final recording sessions, George looked around at the vibrant group gathered in the studio. The energy was electrifying as they laughed and shared stories between takes. "This album is a testament to the power of music to connect us," he declared, excitement bubbling within him. "We are stronger together, and our stories matter." As the release date approached, George reflected on the journey, filled with gratitude. He felt the weight of his past lifting, grateful for the lessons learned along the way. It was on his return to the Muse that George organized the album launch, inviting everyone involved to celebrate their collective creation. On the night of the launch, the cafe brimmed with an atmosphere of love and anticipation. Familiar faces mingled, and the scent of fresh coffee filled the air. George stood at the front, held the microphone tightly, feeling the chorus of supporters and friends behind him. "I am beyond grateful to have you all here tonight," he began, gazing into the crowd filled with familiar smiles. "This album isn't just mine, it's ours. It reflects the strength, dreams, and stories that bind us together." As George performed the lead track, a heartfelt anthem of resilience, emotions surged, palpable and real. The connection between him and the audience felt electric, each note ringing true as if they were all sharing a piece of a larger story. In that moment, he found not just belonging but purpose. As he wrapped up the evening, George stepped off stage with renewed clarity. His heart swelled with admiration for his fellow musicians and fans, reminding him how pivotal their contributions had been. Together, they had formed a legacy founded on the threads of love and community. With the success of the album launch, George stared out once more at the Nashville skyline, the stars twinkling like endless possibilities. The realization hit him deeply. His true legacy was not in fame or success, but in the lives he touched through music, nurturing the dreams of both seasoned artists and new voices alike. Filled with a powerful sense of hope, George stepped forward into the next chapter of his life, eyes set on the horizon. The journey was far from over. It was merely beginning. With every note played, every story woven, he knew he would carry the spirit of the Muse with him, illuminating his path and shaping a legacy that would inspire generations to come.